She was known as the Blood Countess, a woman so infamous, her name is still whispered with dread over 400 years later. With ties to kings and cardinals, she lived in privilege, surrounded by wealth, soldiers, and scholars. But behind the castle walls, a darkness festered, a thirst not for power or gold, but for blood. Elizabeth was a Hungarian noblewoman born into one of the most powerful families in Central Europe. And not just any blood. The blood of young girls. Her childhood was steeped in brutality. She witnessed public execution, torture, and war. Some say she even suffered from seizures that caused fits of rage and hallucinations. Others claim she was exposed to satanic rituals by her relatives, many of whom dabbled in alchemy and black magic. Born in 1560, Elizabeth was raised in a world of violence and superstition. Together, they lived in Cactus Castle, an isolated fortress perched high in the mountains. When friends left for war, Elizabeth was left alone, with her growing appetites. At the age of 15, Elizabeth was married to Count Thory, a soldier known as the Black Knight of Hungary for his savage cruelty on the battlefield. She began to experiment. Enraged, the Countess struck the girl so hard, blood splattered across her hand. As she wiped it away, she noticed something odd. Rumors spread of young maidens disappearing, of screams echoing from the stone halls late at night. The villagers feared her, but no one dared to question. Some were locked in cages, others tortured with red-hot irons, needles, or knives. Elizabeth was a widow by then, but more powerful than ever. Even when whispers of murder reached the king, he hesitated. After all, who would dare accuse a noblewoman of such monstrous crimes? Many were drained of blood, collected in basins, smeared on her skin, or, as legend says, poured into baths. Eyewitnesses testified to seeing Elizabeth covered in blood, laughing as she inflicted pain. One servant confessed that some girls were sewn into horse carcasses as punishment. It started small. A slap here, a pinprick there. Servants were punished harshly. Then came the legend that made her immortal in infamy. One day, a servant girl accidentally pulled Elizabeth's hair while brushing it. Her skin, where the blood had touched it, looked younger, softer, smoother. Something in Elizabeth snapped. Instead, she was bricked into a room inside her own castle. Only a small opening was left, just big enough to pass food. Others believe the court had more than enough evidence. The truth is blurred by time, but one thing is certain. From that moment on, the killings escalated. She began luring peasant girls into her castle with promises of work. They were never seen again. Elizabeth believed bathing in virgin blood could preserve her youth. She wasn't just killing. She was harvesting. But how did she get away with it? Because she was untouchable. The family owned vast lands, commanded armies, and even had relatives in the royal court. Eventually, the death toll became impossible to ignore. Over 300 girls were said to have vanished. In 1610, King Matthias II sent a team of soldiers to investigate. What they found inside Cactus Castle was beyond horrifying. Bodies, mutilated, drained, discarded. Girls shackled to walls. A book of names. And yet, she was never put on trial. Because of her family's status, Elizabeth was spared public execution. She spent 4 years entombed in silence, dying alone in 1614. Her alleged accomplices were not so lucky. Some were tortured, others burned to the stake. But the Countess herself, she became legend. Was she truly guilty? Or the victim of a political conspiracy? Some historians argued the charges were exaggerated, a plot to seize her wealth and lands. Elizabeth remains one of the most terrifying women in history, not just because of what she did, but because she showed the world what happens when cruelty is cloaked in nobility, and horror hides behind a beautiful face. They called her the Blood Countess, but to the terrified peasants, she was something worse. A vampire in human form, a noblewoman who turned her thirst for beauty into a reign of terror. Was Elizabeth a misunderstood woman of science and superstition, or the most prolific female serial killer of all time? You decide.